Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Byram Hills Board of Education meeting for September 26, 2017. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're a little late around the board table tonight due to some illnesses. We hope everyone feels better soon. Just for the record, the board met at 7 o'clock and we went into executive session and we discussed 4 items. 3.1, which was a legal matter individual employee, and 3.2, a legal matter property. 3.3, legal matter budget, and we added 3.4, policy matter school district officer. And no comments from the public, unless Susan comments? Good. Comments from the public. Can I have a motion to adopt our agenda for this evening?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Okay, there was one added item, yes. There was one added item, which is 3.4, policy matters school district officer. Can I have a motion to appoint Jen Lamia as district clerk pro tem?
So moved.
Second? Second. And all in favor? Okay. And can I have a motion to approve our consent agenda? Personnel, special services, and business.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Okay, and that brings us to unfinished business, and we have no unfinished business. Brings us to new business, and we have no new business, do we? No new business, right? Okay, and that brings us to staff reports. I'm going to turn it over to Jen Lemia.
Well, that was a quick segue. We've had an exciting almost first month of school. We finished all of our back to school nights. We had a wonderful showing at the Wizards event and are very grateful to the BHEF for putting forward such an event. I played a fantastic basketball game as witnessed by some of our board members. But it was really an enjoyable time for faculty, for kids, and I'm glad for all of the people who were able to come out. It was a really wonderful event. Next item, I just wanted you to know that we have started, thanks to the BHEF, our fall grant cycle. So I have notified all of the teachers of the opportunities for Insta grants and for opportunities to submit applications with their building principals for grants. 2 very exciting things that have occurred recently in our schools involve student recognition, one of my favorite topics. We did have 7 National Merit semifinalists at Byram Hills High School, which is fantastic. And that is the highest scoring New York State PSAT scores, and in February we find out if we have any finalists. So congratulations to those students. We have already had our media correspondent take a nice picture of them, create a great article, so we'll be sharing that with the public shortly. And also I think it was pretty phenomenal that we had 20 students artwork at the Armonk Art Show, which is a real amazing event, and nice that so many of our students are recognized for that capacity. We have very strong programs. The one thing I do want to talk about tonight for a bit of a report is about the APP process, which is the athletic placement process. At the end of last year, Rob Castagna addressed the board and started to talk about this concept of looking at a policy that we currently have, 5280, which is athletics, which states that students in 7th or 8th grade in non-contact sports may be eligible to try out if they are recommended for a varsity sport. The athletic placement process looks to open up JV and varsity opportunities to 7th graders and 8th graders. After Rob presented the initial concept, he and I met to talk about how we create a process, a discovery process, to determine if that's even a recommendation of the athletic department to the board in the future. So Rob is developing a committee, and the committee is going to be meeting with stakeholders between now and December. The committee will consist of teachers and coaches in the district and likely members of the athletic advisory. They will go to the various constituent groups, parents, students, coaches, physical education and health teachers, They will do the investigative back work to find out where this is in other schools. They will talk to our school physician. And at that point, the committee will look at the information they gather to see if this is right for the multitude of students and multitude of teams that we have in this district. So sort of a deep dive exercise. Rob is going to come and talk to us on December 5th, and he is either going to tell us that their discoveries lead them to feel that they want to recommend this process, or that they are not moving forward with this process, and they do not recommend it. But either way, I asked him to conduct this process and come back to the board to have that discussion again in December. December is an important point, because if we should want to move in the direction of this, which I'm not saying either side right now because I don't know enough information about it, it would give us the time for the board to have conversations in public about it, for the policy committee to work on it, and for something to go into play for the following school year. All of this takes a great amount of time and care, so we make sure that whatever decision we come up with is one that is well-founded, based upon our constituent groups, and what's happening in our schools now. So that'll be the process for athletic placement.
I really appreciate that
I
process.
just want to be clear about this. Is this potential review of the policy limited to non-contact sports, or this would be expanded to contact sports?
The policy is looking for non-contact sports.
Right.
That's what 5280 is currently about, but we have to see what the athletic placement process is in other districts and what their recommendations
Well, the only
are.
reason you do that is if you wanted to expand it to contact sports.
Right.
Okay, so
Well,
this
there are
is,
two things. You'd be expanding it to contact sports, and
Yeah.
you'd also be allowing 7th and 8th graders to go to JV, which is not currently in 5280. In 5280, currently, they can do non-contact sports for varsity, but not the JV component of it.
Right.
okay.
Well, we'll.
So, but a lot to discover.
Exactly, and it sounds like the buck will stop at the board, so.
It is the board.
So this will be very helpful, and it's good to know that it's a wide committee that's looking into this, and that we are getting parent input and benchmarking against other districts, so it'll help us.
I would just note on this a couple things. One, we certainly, I believe, would be looking for a recommendation from the superintendent on this.
Mhm.
But also, I think one of the, I don't say problems is the wrong word, but one of the issues in having these committees, that the committees may come out feeling one way, and we may come out feeling a totally different way. And the community has to understand that while committee work is always valued, the ultimate decision sits at this table. And whether the recommendation is to do A or B, that's fine, but ultimately this is our decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
the conversation.
I nobody elected committee members to make these decisions. The community elected us to make these decisions, and we have to make them with, of course, the input from the athletic director and the superintendent.
So when I had this conversation with Rob Castagna, I said the exact same thing. I said, Rob, you have to understand that when you meet with the committee, they need to understand that just because they are meeting and uncovering all this information doesn't mean that this is the way it's going to go. I said, for example, I don't hire anyone. The board hires everyone. So I may be a part of that process, but the board has the ultimate decision about what they're going to do, and this is the same thing.
I just want to note my
Yeah.
leeriness about
What are
this.
you leery
I'm
about?
leery about a lot of things, and we're looking at this policy again. This is not a policy that's been in place for a very long time. In the larger context of things, it's worked well, and I'm not necessarily clear on the motivation for reexamining, other than perhaps there may be some JV teams that might not exist if we don't have the ability for younger students to participate, but I don't know necessarily if that's a reason to reexamine the policy. I know that parents, when it comes to athletics, especially when it comes to their own children's participation in athletics, sometimes perspective can get lost. And not having any dog in this particular fight, I'm not being a parent of any 7th or 8th graders. I can say that I am very, the policy that was put in place after considerable discussion, considerable examination, hearing from many different stakeholders, and it was done with the complete support of the athletic director at the time. And I'm not necessarily one to change a policy because we've had a change, let's say, in administration. But let's see. I'm not prejudging it, but let's just see. I'm saying I'm not willing to say I'm looking at this policy in the legal term ab initio, just like it's something new. It's not new. It's been the policy, and to change it has to be a really compelling reason to do it. And and I'm emphasizing the word compelling. Not just, well, it might be better to do it another way.
Well, the next 6 months will tell if it's compelling or not.
Well, you also,
And there's nothing wrong with information
so
gathering.
besides and sorry if you had said this already, but besides the December presentation meeting, if that's when it's happening, will we get bits and pieces along the way? Like, I don't want it just to all hit us in December and then we have to make a decision right then and there. Like, I want to
We don't
know
have to make
who's
a
on the
decision.
committee, not specifically who, but how many parents are on, what the age group of the kid. I just want to understand who is, who's on the advisory committee, just so that we can understand.
He's planning to do a
motivations.
presentation to us to talk about the various stakeholder groups and,
Okay.
you know what I mean, to present that in that way.
Okay.
Other than at a public forum of a board meeting, I don't see how else that can happen. So I think his initial introduction in December, then I've allotted 2 other
Okay, so we
board
do have
meetings
times,
for us to
okay.
have open discussion,
Perfect.
to ask for people to come back,
Okay.
to, you know,
That's what I'm asking.
get some
That's great, so at least
clarification.
we.
And that's
get some time.
that's even if we
Right.
decide to go down there.
Okay.
Well,
Robin, I might want to just add 2 components. I think being a little bit involved in Rob's investigation of the potential policy change, which being in those discussions, I don't actually have an opinion in either direction or not. But I do think I would challenge a little bit of your thinking, Ira, around the compelling nature of the change in athletic programs and the thinning out of a number of our teams. So this was not only driven by parents, there were numerous coaches that had expressed how things have evolved and children choosing these travel programs at the expense of our JV and modified programs. So again, I want to be very clear. I don't actually have I felt like one of the nice things you did, Jen, here, and I think we should all feel good about this, is creating a process around this that then we can be well informed. I think it's a little iffy. I don't even feel like we even in the athletic advisory committee, the discussions were not thorough enough around it. So, but I would bring up the 2 compelling components of what's driving the thought process around it. Was one, the evolution of club teams and the way that process works today, and secondly, that not driven by parents being aggressive about having their kids on these teams at too young of an age, whether it's emotionally or physically fit to play at that level, but the coaches' feelings around the changes in dynamics of coaching and getting some of those excelling younger kids in the system versus a kid just showing up to varsity because they're focused on club teams. So.
I appreciate that. I would only say that we've had club teams and travel teams for many, many years in Byram Hills. This is not a new event. And also, we have had over the last, I'm going to say 6 to 10 years, when this policy's been in play, numerous times when certain teams could not be fielded because there wasn't the number of children eligible to play whatever, and at no time was there deemed to be a need to re-examine this particular policy because programs come, programs go, teams are formed. The 1 year we dropped varsity football, we put it into there was only a JV team. 1 year varsity football became an instructional league. 1 year we didn't have JV field hockey. I mean, we're not dealing with some things that, this is something that just hasn't come up and say, oh, my goodness, we have sport teams that may not be totally staffed. I mean, this has happened, but again, I'm never opposed to information gathering. I think, let's gather the information and let's see where it brings
I
us.
just felt at the end of last year when the board was presented with this, that I didn't have enough information.
Yeah, yeah, look, I would say, I think this is an issue that the community certainly has on its mind. It's an important issue. It has a lot of different components. I really think that the process that you've outlined is a very good one. We need to get the information, and we need to ultimately come to a decision. But I think this is a natural exercise in the context of the fact that enrollment has declined significantly, and this will be one element that needs to be looked at. Whether anything changes or not, we need to see the evidence that gets put forth and make a decision, but I think it is a healthy time to review it.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Did you have?
Great. No, that's it.
But you weren't expected that from your report, huh? Okay, thank you very much.
No, it's a good conversation to have. It's a conversation we should be having.
And that brings us to our board reports. And for President's report, I'm just.
I mean, it's only 10 to 8. Where are we running? You know, come on.
I know, right?
Everyone was going to give
We
you
had to make
open
this
floor for
worthwhile.
about a half hour.
You'll never be harmed by that.
So you guys should have all gotten from me an email with the link from a webinar on the committees that NISBA had put together. It's good. I summarized it, so I mean, if you get a chance, just glance at it. It's about an hour long. If you don't have a chance, there's just handouts that are part of it. You can just glance at those. It'll help with our retreat. And Lori and I are both going to attend on Thursday. Westpot is having their roundtable breakfast, and one of the topics I think is going to be the committees. So.
It's next Thursday, right?
Actually, I think it's
Oh, this
Thursday. It's
Thursday.
actually this Thursday. There might be some other topics
you're
too,
right.
but if we
This
weren't
Thursday. Yeah.
positive.
There's like 12 topics, but we both put that as our
Right.
choice.
So, I mean, we'll let you know how that goes. And any other committee reports?
I might a brief mention of the policy committee summary that we had a meeting last week. One of the policies that we reviewed was 2160, which is the district officer and employee code of ethics. And in its simplistic form, no board member or officer or employee of the district shall have an interest or receive direct or indirect benefits as a result of the contract in the district. We just reviewed that policy, and involving basically benefit from any type of contracts. I mean, this is just pretty straightforward conflict of interest issues, but private employment, any board members that are employed really can't solicit the district or have benefits through their relationship with the board. A variety of other policies that we had that would be bringing first read adjustments to the board over the upcoming months.
Great. Thank you very much. Other reports?
This month I attended the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association legislative meeting. We discussed 31 proposed resolutions to be presented in Lake Placid. I just wanted to highlight a few of them. There were a bunch of them, number 12, 13, and 19, that were a series of resolutions to amend the tax cap to make it more flexible. This had tremendous support from all constituents versus no support for eradicating the tax cap completely. Another resolution that created a lot of buzz was there's tremendous support for having high school start times later. In fact, Dobbs Ferry's begun rolling this out, but they don't have busing,
Right.
which is very different than Byram Hills. They have found the benefits so far have outweighed any penalties, such as fines from arriving late to sport events. The students have exhibited less stress in the high school. The CDC has studies shown it's healthier. That said, they have a very different dynamic than we have.
They should have somebody speak with Greenwich, because Greenwich just this year changed their start times, and they do have busing, and they've rearranged all of the busing schedules. So someone should possibly look into.
But we were at Westpot, so we could only.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, but Greenwich just did it this year, and it seems to be working well.
There are other issues such as contracts. I mean, there's a lot that has to be looked at in order for something like that.
Yeah,
It's happening in Maryland. They have county systems, so it's everything kind of can switch over at once. So they've done that in Maryland, but
So all the.
it solved the sports issue
Yeah,
because
they're all on the same schedule.
they're all on the same schedule.
If we were in a farming community, you might want to.
But it sounds like it's bubbling up again.
It's bubbling up.
It bubbles up
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
so often,
Yeah,
but
but the
now it
three-
sounds like it's bubbling up on a bigger.
The three biggest issues are always the buses, the sports, and unions,
Unions and-
contracts.
And sometimes childcare with the high school students
Mhm.
watching
Right.
their younger siblings.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
those are those four issues. but
That's
it's,
true.
it's worth keeping an eye on, for sure, because it's,
It
there's a lot of
is.
evidence out there, it's just not easy to do.
No, costly, we looked into
The
it
greatest
last year.
evidence is living with teenagers.
Yes, that's so true. We need to start
We
school
could
a
do
lot.
another study.
It might be Netflix might be lobbying.
Exactly.
There was support for raising the allowable undesignated fund balance for school districts, giving schools more ability to save, so that's something to watch out for.
That would be helpful.
There's also tremendous support in protecting students' privacy through locally generated ID numbers as opposed to easily identified data such as names and social security numbers.
For what
Um,
purpose?
For what purpose? Well, there was just a huge breach recently.
Okay, I hear this.
So that was one of the resolutions they want to bring up. So Scott and I will monitor the status of these resolutions and let you know how they were presented and how the votes went in Lake Placid.
Great, thanks. And is anyone planning on going to Lake Placid to represent us? Anybody? Any takers?
Hopefully next year it'll be in New York City.
Lake Placid?
I hope so
Hopefully
too, if I'm right.
It's beautiful.
During hockey season. The U.S. hockey team.
Thank you so much for summarizing.
And then the West Platte issues will be more focused on some of our local priorities, because, you know, some of these issues, it's such a big state. There's a
Right.
diverse set of interests, so
That's
it's
for
hard
sure.
to get everything to align, but by the West Platte, there'll be a lot of focus on issues that we care about.
Right, and those end up being more relevant for our little neck of the woods. All right, good. And then town liaison, we're going to have our first meeting on Friday.
Yep.
Okay. And anybody else?
I know Lara's not here, but the PTSA has a child meeting on Thursday night. It's the annual welcome to the school year meeting at 7 o'clock at HCC, I think.
Great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Any topics for future agendas, requests for information? Hearing none. Communications to the board? None that I'm aware of. Anybody else? Okay, can I have a motion to approve our Board of Education minutes from September 12th? Second. Okay, any changes? All in favor? Thanks, Donna. And we already went into executive session, as I said, and discussed the 4 items I mentioned earlier. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, good night.